Hey guys, welcome back to the Electric Bike Lab. In today's video, we're going to be interviewing Derek Stavis. So Derek is a hardware and software engineer, and he's responsible for an amazing app called Kilowatt. So if you are familiar with the electric bike space, one of the big things is motor controllers. Motor controllers is kind of the sweet spot. You have batteries, motors, and then motor controllers. But one of the few fully programmable options for motor controllers are these guys. So these are the ASI series of controllers. And what's amazing about these is that they're fully programmable for any type of brushless motor. You can have cool features like regenerative braking, hooking it up to multiple different displays. You can set your power, your current, run a light, just tons of features. But one of the biggest complaints about the ASI controllers is their lack of programmability on the user end. So basically, if you buy one of these controllers, you probably have to buy it from a dealer, and then that dealer is supposed to program the controller for you. But a lot of people in the DIY space, they want to be able to program their own controller. So Derek was an interesting case because for his Sur Ron, he bought a BAC8000 controller, and when he found out that he wasn't able to control it and to program it, he didn't like that at all. And so he decided to take matters into his own hands, and he completely came up with his own development of an app that he released to the entire world. He allowed it to be completely free to anybody that wanted to use it. And this guy spent between 800 and 1,000 hours developing this app, which is pretty crazy. So if you do use this app, do us a huge favor, drop him a coffee, buy him a $3 coffee, $5 coffee. We've got the link in the description below. Help support this guy's work because he's put a ton into this thing, and the thing is really, really awesome. So if we take a look at this app, we'll open it up and it brings us to this menu where we can even do a simulated setup. So we'll go to setup and it brings us to this screen where we can adjust our voltage, we can adjust the power level. It even has default settings for a stock battery, bypass battery, or custom. From there we can further fine tune things like the throttle. He has this awesome calibration wizard where all you have to do is twist the throttle and it will automatically calibrate the voltage start and end points, which is just super intuitive. This guy really put a lot of work into this application, and it is really smooth and really nice to use. So from there, we can even adjust things like the acceleration torque ramp, brake torque ramp. We can set up regenerative braking if we want to. We got lever regen, variable regen. We can even do engine braking, on or off. So basically throttle off regen. We can set up our motor phase amps, field weakening, gearing, temperature limits. Just so much that we can do. Even the display can be changed here. Sport, eco mode, and even the motor. He's got a lot of presets for the motor that are built right in, which is really cool. Let's see if I can find that. Yeah, so this screen is really cool. The quick setup, you can set the motor right up. There's all these different options that are pre-built in, like the QS motors, generic hall sensor, generic sensorless. We can check out our protection features. And we can even do data logging, which is really cool. So there's a ton of options. Definitely take a look. This thing is awesome. So let's dive into the conversation with Derek Stavis, where he's going to tell us how this app came to be and what it's all about.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Definitely excited to hear about your story and kind of how you developed this app and kind of your history with all things electric. And just want to say thank you. I know I've been using the app and it's been a game changer for me, kind of a lifesaver, to be honest, because we're a small business that sells ASI controllers. And so before the app, obviously, anytime any customer wanted anything done, it'd be like a phone call and it'd be kind of a big ordeal. And now I kind of just send them on the app and they prefer it anyways, right? They're just like, oh, this is awesome. And yeah, so it's been a huge blessing for me, and I'm sure tons of people have really benefited from it. So thank you. Hear the origin. Yeah, sorry, it's a little delayed. I would love to kind of hear the origin story of it and kind of, how you started with it, what made you want to develop it, and kind of like if it was a pain point that it was coming from, or the whole thing.
Yeah. So It all started when I got my controller. I've done a lot of research before buying one, and at the time there were not a lot of options in the market. And so when I got it, I started hearing about the stories of people, somebody else's password, or like some sort of like screen recording type of thing. That was super awkward moving forward. And so as a nerd I am, I decided to spend my time instead building an app to solve this problem. So it came from the need of me wanting to solve my own controller by myself. And then I saw that a bunch of people had the same problem. Like, why not just making it available for everyone since I'm already building for me? It makes sense to just, put it out there. Other people can get benefited from it. And I know it was a pain point of the community. And then on top of this, like I like programming. That's my hobby. It's my day job as well. So I work at a day job and I do this on my free time. Not putting something out that I would use every day. And then other features came up, like, oh, it would be nice to have a dashboard, and then it would be nice to have track recording, so you can like record your data log and then analyze later, and then add GPS on top of this and all the other stuff. And so I spend like some solid 800 to 1,000 hours on this, I guess, over the course of 2 years now.
Wow, I figured. I mean, because it's so, like, the user interface on it is so smooth. And so, like, like you got the sliders, you've got all the suggested power levels, you've got the calibration for the throttle and the brakes. And like that stuff was never a part of the original app. And so you can tell that there was so much thought and like mindfulness behind it. Yeah, it's super. I figured that there was a high amount of hours. 800 to 1,000, that's a lot of time. So huge thank you for that, because I know you put the app out for free for people to use. So that's, and you're basically only going off of donations for like on your coffee site. So buy you a coffee kind of thing. Yeah. Super valuable. Really cool. So you are a professional programmer then as your full-time job or gig?
Yeah. Today I run an engineering team in a company here in Bay Area. That's what I've been doing for the past 20 years now. So it's not like it's news how to build it.
20 years? And, how old are you? You look like you're like 30.
I'm from the 90s.
Okay, I mean, you're from the 90s. Yeah. So am I. Have you been doing it for 20 years? Like, you look like you're in your 30s.
Yeah, I started very early in computer stuff, and it was sort of an interesting moment in the computer industry because computers were just coming up, and like the internet wasn't new. Like when I was young, there was no internet, right? Like internet was created and like came to where I was living in the 90s and 2000s. So I was born in that age where all these things were happening, and there was so much fun to be had with computers. Because they were, easy to hack, and then so you can do all these crazy things. And so I spent a lot of time like when I was like probably like 10 or so doing this type of stuff. And so I've been doing this for a while. As a kid, it was my hobby. It became my job, but it is still my hobby, so I still do it in my free time. And I have a job, like the reality is like the community having to pay for dealers to like go into a call, like it's burning both people's time. It's burning the company time because they have to have like dedicated support, and this is something that for a small business is expensive because it takes a lot of your time. And then for people, they don't want to call in someone; they just want to solve their problem, And so that's why to me, like making this for free made sense as well, because it was something that a lot of people needed, and I'm building for me, and I'm building for other people. I'm building for me. And it happens that, people say, hey, this would be nice. I'm like, yeah, this would be nice. I would enjoy it as well. So, let me do it. And so that's why to me, like, it's important to be free, because every other brand will eventually have a free app to, configure their controller. and people that have this one won't have it. So that's why it's going to be free. I may add some paid features, more as so to be like, oh, how do I do in-app payments? I'm more curious about how the inner workings of in-app payments work, and thus I may add a paid feature, but it's more to learn about how to run, like a paid-based app, not because I actually want to charge people, because doing that is work, right?
It's just the next learning thing of like the next thing for you to learn about, like how to run a paid app. That's awesome. So did you have experience with other controllers, or was that kind of the first one, the ASI, that you went with, and then kind of right away you're like, I need to solve this, or were you trying a few other ones?
Yeah, so I've worked with embedded software a while ago, so I have little like chips and stuff with me. So I worked for a couple of like some solid 5 years maybe working with hardware as well, not only software. So I had to make my own controller in the past, right? Like I had to write my own software. Like we build things like passive keyboards and printers and like all sorts of machines that require having communication with some other thing. So, that's the foundation to communicate to a controller. Is you in the industry, you learn a couple of protocols that companies use and that are standard. Usually Western companies will follow standard protocols. So for, Western-made controllers, it's easier because they may just follow a standard that, as long as you can implement the standard, you're good to go, right? And so that's why to me it was so easy to actually get to talk to the controller itself.
So it was a Western like kind of standard protocol that you found, and you were able to develop it from there.
Yeah, exactly. So what I did is I did some research, and then there's this website called GitHub. And GitHub is a gem for programmers because it's where open source software goes. And a lot of people they're like me, they have their personal projects and it's personal. They don't care if somebody copies it. And so they just put it out there, right? So I found some documentation on how the controller worked. And that's how I discovered that they decided to use mostly standard protocols. So they have the protocol for, Bluetooth is not anything special. You can buy a chip that does exactly what their Bluetooth chip does. In fact, if you open the controller, the Bluetooth chip is just like an off-the-shelf component that they solder on top. So that off-the-shelf component has off-the-shelf libraries and protocols that you can use. And so I started from there. After that, I discovered that they use a protocol called Modbus. And Modbus is a very standard protocol in the industry, in the automotive industry, for local communication with other controllers. And then they also use CAN and CAN Open, which are two other protocols, again, for cars usually, that you can use, and they're pretty standard as well. So they just follow the standard, and following the standard made my life easy because I could work on the controller communication as a black box. I don't know how it works internally. I know how to adhere to the standard, talk to the standard protocol, and the controller will behave because that's the standard. So I just implemented the standard. I literally downloaded the PDF for the standard, and I encoded the PDF was telling me to do.
That is cool. So you just essentially reverse engineer, hacked it, but the way that you were able to from GitHub or from standardized protocols. It's awesome, man. That's super cool. Modern day hacker, basically. We can cut this out if needed, but have you had any contact with ASI about the controller or the app? Have they said, we don't like this or anything like that?
No. They have never said anything. I have never asked anything. I remember actually to them, the first time that I tried to do it, I was naive enough to not know that, their position in this, which, to be clear, I also don't know their position in this, that they said, yeah, we cannot provide support to non-dealers. If you're interested, you have to be a dealer. I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to be a dealer. I don't want to sell your controller. I want to carry stock. Like, I don't want to run a business. I just want to make this app for fun, and to solve my own problem, right? And so, like, I don't know, never talked to them, never like had them, talking to me about it. So I don't know ASI's position on it. The only thing I know is that a lot of people can solve their own problems now, and that's what I
Yeah.
care.
I'm pretty sure their position is basically they don't want people having the software and then blowing up their own controllers and then blaming them. And so I think what you did was you made it like super user friendly and you kind of, there's like a million features that are in the backdoor software, but you kind of brought forward just the usable ones or just the ones that are kind of like useful for tuning, power, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's their stance on it. I know that they've they made the controllers a while ago, and I think they were destroying a lot of them, or customers were destroying a lot of them, and then that was kind of how they said, okay, we got to do
Yeah.
something here.
Yeah, like to be fair, like I think that's okay. I think that's right. Like they understand what can go wrong if you do something wrong with a controller, right? Like a very simple like user error, like clipping your throttle wires, and then the 5 volt and the signal return short, you're going to go like going, right? Like there is danger associated to dealing with electric vehicle controllers as much as there is with batteries, right? Like we all know from batteries. I mean, batteries is the best example, but the controller itself can pose a lot of danger to the user in case the controller decides to go rogue. And so, I think that they understand that the thousand or so parameters that you have in there, some of them, depending on what you change, they can lead to, undesired behavior in the controller. So they're more than right to try to limit it, but I don't think that it's fair to limit people from changing their battery voltage, for example, right? Like that's a very basic thing that, you may want to upgrade. You may want to use a longer battery or a bigger battery or whatever, right? Or like maybe the device is end of life and the battery does not exist for sale. You have to buy a different one. Like you should have the right of changing basic parameters of things that you bought because they're your things, right? As long as it's being done in a safe way. And that's why, like sometimes people ask me, oh, can you put this feature in the app? I'm like, no, because 99.9% of people don't know how to deal with this. And they're gonna do it. People are going to try things. And, unless, I put text everywhere because as people started using the app, I started adding like help text, like lots of help text. People don't read it. That's what I discovered. It doesn't matter how much text you add. People don't read it, right? Because that's how humans, are. They try things, they see what happens, and they learn from it. And so, people should be able to try and test things. But I feel now responsible for not adding anything there that can end up breaking people's controller and putting their lives in, in the hazard. That's why my position is, yeah, I'm not going to add this crazy things here because people can actually really get hurt.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of a funny story. I bought a Sur Ron and it was a really good deal because the person had done a bypass battery and I'm pretty sure they bypassed themselves and then they flicked the breaker on and they didn't have any resistor going from battery to controller and the controller caught fire and then it just scared him. So then he just bailed on the bike and said like, I don't want anything to do with this anymore and sold it. And then I bought off him but yeah, there is definitely danger in controllers as well as batteries. And that kind of came from the battery, but still same kind of thing. Yeah. So super cool. So what is your, what kind of riding do you do? And you have a Sur Ron now. Is it pretty modded out or I would imagine so.
So yeah, like right now I have I just got my second ASI controller device recently, but I started on the Sur Ron. I got it stock. It was not new as well because like buying new vehicles is never a good idea. Um, so I bought stock, and then we had a group of riders in Los Angeles. I learned that they had more power, and like, oh, this power thing sounds cool. You can, get to higher speeds as well as you can have way more torque. And as a nerd, I'm like, oh, that should be cool. That should be a cool thing to do, is to change your controller and like play with the little settings, and then like have telemetry on an app. I was already thinking about all of this when I got the controller originally. And so yeah, I did the upgrade, and I've been running it for now like 2.5 years maybe. Never had the problems that people usually report having. Like it is the same controller still. I wash my bike with water, like nothing special. Not a pressure washer, of course. And yeah, we're running for 2.5 years. I'm happy, like people ask, oh, why didn't you get the new controller? I'm like, yeah, I could get the new controller, but right now, like, I'm having fun. Like it's not only about the the new controller thing, or the more power, or more whatever. It's about the whole packet, right? The whole packet is what matters. Like I have the integration that I want. I have the features that I want in an app that I built, and I have fun building for myself and for other people maybe. And so, yeah, that's what I've been running for a while now. And then I just got my second device, which is a Chimera BMX. It's an amazing BMX bike that, I didn't even know what, BMX was, or sort of know, right? But like never really rode one. And then Austin reached out to me recently, and because he also runs ASI, and he was having some problems with his app, so he asked some questions, and I got the other Chimera. And I got one recently, and it's my second ASI device that I can also use Kilowatt with. So it's a fun little ride. I can have the same features, do the same tuning, and yeah, have even more fun.
That's awesome. It's a BMX bike, so like kind of standard 20-inch wheels, chromoly frame kind of thing, or?
Oh no, this thing is actually sick. So Austin is one of those guys that I can relate to, because he is very like much like me. He's a builder. He likes to build things, and he likes to innovate and do things differently. So the Chimera is an all titanium frame BMX.
Chimera?
Yes.
How do you spell that?
Yeah. Like, let me type here in the chat.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Let's take a look.
So this bike is so it's full. He built his own drivetrain. He disagreed with the industry, and I really like when people question the status quo, and I think that he's questioned the status quo here. He created his own like clutch system and like transmission, and all the motor mounting is part of the bike frame as well. And so it's not like a bottom bracket motor like you usually see on other mid-drives. Mid-drives are not like high power like this we're on. And the cool thing is that because he moved that to the middle of the frame, you can use whatever cranks you want on the bike, because that's just regular bike parts. So everything in this bike is regular bike parts that you can buy in any shop. And that's really important for this audience, right? So it's an awesome bike, has really like super strong power, maybe like, too much speed for what the size it is, because it can get like 35 miles per hour, at least the one I have. But it's a lot of fun as well. So yeah, he's Austin is a super like detail oriented guy, and I think that we get along together a lot because of that.
That is cool. Yeah, this bike looks sick. Wow, even a fully thermally potted battery. That's and then it looks like monocell.
Yeah.
Dang, that's sweet. And that's an 855 on there, back 855.
Yes, that's the BAC8000. I've heard about this controller so much in our Discord. A lot of people come ask questions about it, but I never had one. I have an 8000. That's the only controller I own. And my bench has a 4000 now. And so I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't even know. So I had to do a little research, and like learn the major use case, because I feel like across the ASI line now you have like the high power controllers, 4000 and 8000, and you have the like mid power controllers like the 855, the 555 as well. And maybe it's where I would put the 2000, because it's just a little increase of like beyond the 855 to me. It's just a different form factor. And so people that use the mid power controllers, their use case is mostly pedal assist. It's where they're being used, mostly pedal assist, and apparently some scooters also have it. And then the scooter people, they're usually doing the upgrade from 855 to 4000 or 2000, because they want to have more power in their scooters. And the use case of scooters is usually more similar than the use case of bikes than pedal assist, because pedal assist has an entire like world of settings that for high power folks, like I for instance didn't even know about that. I learned that you can pedal, and the amount of torque you put drives how much power goes into the motor. I had no idea about this, and I learned with the folks on 855 coming to our Discord channel.
Yeah, the torque sensing. That was like the CYC mid-drive motors. Kind of their big thing was the torque sensing, and they used the 855 and the BAC2000 in their earlier generations. But yeah, I think that's why the ASI controllers are so kind of sought after, because they're really one of the only controllers that has like a really good control algorithm, like the field-oriented control, and then ability to run a torque sensor, a pedal assist sensor, all these displays. Yeah, and then the big barrier behind them was the lack of programmability, which you kind of really helped solve, or really at least help it make it a lot easier. How is that bike with the 855? Is it like plenty of power? No need to go up to 2000 or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, Austin told me you can upgrade this to the 2000. I'm like, no, let me see how it goes first. And initially I was like, yeah, wow, lots of power in a small bike. Who doesn't like a small bike that goes zoom zoom? Everybody likes it. And I was like doing a lot of like, yeah, let's go fast. Let's try to get off as fast as possible. Race with the cars and etc. But like, that's not what the ride is, right? Like, there's like different types of rides, and like that's what I'm trying to realize now with the second different type of ride, that the way you use it is different. Like it's not necessarily a road bike that you're going to like do miles and miles on it. It's not even comfortable to sit for too long in such as a tiny bike, and it's not made for that. But it's really fun to like do. Like everywhere I go close to my friends' houses, which are all like around the area, I go with it. That's my main ride. It's like super quick, and you zip through, you get to the places you need to go. It's quick. You can get the bike inside places. It's easy to tie it to some place, like to secure it. And so it's really convenient, I would say. And then it's also fun because you can bring it to the park. I go to the skate park close to my place, and I just play with it right there, right? Like do jumps and all sorts of, cool tricks as well. And I even found a couple like BMX guys close by that they were testing the bike, and they tried to get it to the bowl, and they're like, oh, that's so different. I'm like, yeah, like even using an electric BMX is going to take time for people to, I think, like learn how to use it, because it's not like you can throttle at any moment, right? Like you're going to like slip if you throttle at inside the bowl, right? So like I think it's gonna take some time for you to learn, but when you learn, it's going to be a really, really cool bike for people that are really good at BMX.
Yeah. That's gonna open some doors for sure. Super cool, and like you said, lite is being able to. We've done a few BMX bikes, and people just say like they grab it and they can run up a flight of stairs, and it's like no big deal. And it's like you can't really do that with even a mountain bike is way more cumbersome than a little BMX bike that you just pick up. Yeah, that's super cool. So with the app, what do you think was the hardest part for you to get working? I'm sure there was a lot of like roadblocks.
Yeah, interesting. I think that the major challenge with the app is that my main worry is that you can't make a mistake. And, like you're trying to set setting A and then you end up, that value ends up in another setting, right? Like writing the wrong parameter. That's basically what one of my worry is, right? And then the second challenge, I think, today is still there's just so much data you can get out of the device as quick. Like the throughput is really low. So, in a dashboard, for example, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how can I stabilize the frames per second, the updates per second that I get from the controller so that things don't look delayed, right? So I feel that myself, right? Like I want to throttle and when I see the power, like going up as soon as I can, right? Because I want to see how much power I'm hitting, right? Like every millisecond matters in the data that you're showing on the screen. And so there's two main problems of this. First problem is the controller speed. The controller is just as fast as 150 milliseconds. It takes 150 milliseconds to get an answer from the controller. That is when you're close by. If your phone is close by, then you get that. If your phone is not as close, it's going to take longer, right? And I'm aiming to try to update as much as I can per second. So this equates today to around 5 to 6 updates per second. So that's 6 frames per second, right? That's not necessarily fast. And so trying to get there and make the sampling of data as smooth as possible was something that took quite a bit of time for me to figure out. And then the second is when you update the screen so often with animations and a bunch of stuff like updating, and it's not like every second, it's like 5 times per second, right? Like you're performing 6 things in 1 second. Like you also have to take care to not use the battery of my phone entirely because, that's showing things on the screen, which means the screen is on. And if I keep updating things on the screen too frequently, well, that is going to burn your battery. And it burned my battery on my phone. So the second thing is, okay, I have to optimize the app to be more battery efficient. And that takes time because it's okay. Like, what is being expensive here? What are the expensive operations that I'm executing? And how can I improve the performance of those operations? Which just means doing less of them. So removing what is happening in the app, right? So this also took a little bit of time. And I think the third one and fourth ones would be, or second and third one would be backups. Because doing a backup is a very involved process. Doing a backup requires me to know every possible parameter that exists in the system. I need to know what I can read and what I cannot read, because things that I can't read, they come as zeros, but maybe they're not zeros, right? They're something else. And so if I read a parameter that I don't have access to, and it's 0, and I save that in a backup, and you restore that backup in another device, it's going to 0 that entire device. And so I also have to take care about what is readable, and then when writing a backup, you have to take care of what is writable. So you have to take into consideration what is the current user access level, so I don't try to write something that is not writable. I could. The controller is just going to error out, but then first I have to handle an error. And second is that I'm just spending time doing things that don't matter, right? And this entire thing is complicated because if I were to read the entire 1,000 parameter set from the controller, taking 150 milliseconds each, that is going to be a lot of time, right? And I didn't I didn't want people to stay there waiting for, like 10 minutes to back up their controller. So try to optimize this by optimizing how things are read from the controller. By batching reads together, I was able to reduce the backup time as much as possible. Because one of the things that I know that happens with me is like, oh, this operation is taking too much, cancel. Like, you just can't cancel writing a backup. Like, what state of the controller you're going to be at if you cancel, like a firmware upgrade. If you're doing a firmware upgrade, you pull the battery out. What state are you going to leave your controller? So you can't also do that. And so backups was also a quite complicated one. And most recently, the last one is firmware upgrades that I just implemented recently. And I haven't released because I haven't been able to test. I will test in a few weeks. But firmware upgrade was also very complicated because there was a bug in ASI's algorithm that I had to work around. So that took a long time to me to figure out how could I fix their problem, because I was just using standards, right? Like, I implemented all the standards, and then they have a bug in their implementation of the standard such that it's wrong. And so I need to figure out why this is wrong. But now I can actually make Kilowatt upgrade firmware from people. Because that's the other problem that I have. Like, I don't have backdoor. I don't have access to backdoor. I don't have a login and a password. And so I need to figure these things out by myself, right? That's why I created the firmware upgrade, so that I can upgrade my firmware. And I'm pretty sure that other people also want it, right? So, firmware upgrades are coming. And that was actually very hard.
Wow. So you found a bug in their system and then had to work around it. Do they even know that it's there, or do you have no idea if they know?
I have no idea. I think that, like, it's a common mistake. Like ASI, I don't know how old the software is, but I know that the specific function that is weird, I would say. They don't like the reality is, like, if I use an open source standard implementation of that function, it gives me result A. If I use ASI's, it gives me result B. I believe that the reason is they try to implement the specification of this function instead of using a library that already has this function implemented, open source software that it can use. No, they implement their own, try to follow the spec. And as much as I can make this mistake by following the spec, right, they made a mistake following the spec. Well, I am lazy, so I don't write things by myself. I just take things from other people and then adapt, take open source software and adapt. So I took that function from a library, and then it had different results. So I had to figure out why ASI was wrong and eventually implement their bug in my system so I can do firmware upgrades.
Lazy is a very funny way of describing it, because you put 800 to 1,000 hours into this project. Like, lazy is clearly not even close to what the reality is, but yeah, work smarter, not harder. That's cool. And wow, I'm blown away. Super cool that you've been able to do this. And have you had help with development, or are you kind of the only person writing the code?
I'm the only person writing the code. I had people wanting to help. I am welcome to contributors. I originally intended to have the app open source and share the source code with other people. The reason why I ultimately decided to not do this, even though it's against my will, is most people don't have the understanding to respect open source. And this is a gripe I have with the industry. And this is not only in this industry, but in many other industries. We have people using open source software, charging money for open source software, and not releasing their improvements over that piece of software. The best example of this is Vesk, where many companies are using Vesk, and they do not share their improvement over the Vesk code, and that's part of the license. They're not right. They're not doing the right thing, right? And this happens a lot, and we have seen it, right? Recent cases in the industry, we have EBMX with their X9000 controller. Where's the source code of that? We have Torque now that was just discovered to be using Vesk. Where's the source code now? They kind of publish some patches online, both of them. I have to recognize this. But the license requires every piece of modification you make to be published under the same license. And so we should be seeing these repositories getting updated on a daily or monthly or weekly basis because they're still working on the software, right? And what I don't want to make here is, an app that, people like dealers can go and copy, sell, right? And not return their improvements over the existing app. That's what I want to avoid. And so that's why it's not open source. And not being open source also creates a problem for external contributors because the app currently does not have a license. The code base does not have a license. It's unlicensed. So it means that I'm the owner of it. And if somebody else joins it, what does it mean for them to be part of it? Because now they have their code as well there, right? If this was an open source project, this is solved. I can just roll out an open source license and my problem is solved because open source licenses solve everything. But private projects, they're kind of like a gray area, right? And it would be weird to ask for people, hey, do you want to sign a CLA? That means that every contribution you make is now mine because they don't think that they're also going to feel good about it, right? Which is what many open source projects do yet, and still, especially from big corps. And so that's why it was never accessible for other people to contribute. But I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I'm just lazy to deal with the legal aspects of it.
Right. That totally makes sense. I mean, if you've kind of done all the writing so far, you don't have to really worry about anybody else's contributions or anything like that. Have you messed around with Vesk or any of the other? I know Vesk is open source. Have you done a dive into that software at all?
Yeah. So I before even I did bikes, I was already doing electric skates. We're actually going to have a race in Vegas now in 1 week or two. So yeah, that's how I started. I started on Vesk. To me, discovering Vesk was oh shit, this is awesome open source software, open source design. I can understand how things work. And I had a rough idea of how motor control worked, but I didn't really know the little details. And with Vesk, I can read the source code and transform all of that complex math and theory that you can learn online or in books or in videos and really turn that into a domain that I can understand, which is code. And then realizing that it's actually way simpler than it seems. It's like a math formula. I remember when I was trying to learn about MTPA, max torque per amp. I'm oh, how does it work in Vesk? So I go into Vesk source code. I look for it. I'm what? Is this just this one line of code doing this math formula? Is this what this is? I'm so unimpressed. And yeah, sometimes, very complicated math.
It's pretty simple.
Has a very simple implementation. So I really love Vesk. I think it's an awesome tool for people to learn. Like me, I like to learn with, different media like code. And it's awesome to have the ability to do whatever you want. The Float app, for example, where now they're doing one wheels using Vesk. And, there's accelerometers and gyroscopes implemented, where you can read the motion data and then implement an app that is balancing. And, you can build any, an enthusiast, maybe, vehicle
Yeah.
using a Vesk. You can build a 4-wheel one, you can build a 2-wheel, 1-wheel, and all that just works. So I really love Vesk. My inspiration, in fact, for Kilowatt is another app that is made for Vesk, and that is called Yours Truly. It was developed by skaters, so it's mostly like a skater app, but you can use with any Vesk as well. And that was like, the history is like Vesk didn't have an iOS app.
Okay.
And so I was an iOS user and I couldn't use Vesk. And I was doing my research because I was like, okay, if there is no app, I can build my own Vesk app. And then I discovered this one and I'm like, yeah, this is everything I need. That's literally every single feature that I wanted to have is in this app. So I don't need to have one. And then when I got my Sur Ron later and got the BAC, I'm like, oh, okay, now I have the opportunity to build the app that I always wanted. And so just as an example here, the little sheet that you can pull up and down in rides from Kilowatt and the map zooming in and out, that's basically the same idea that came from this app. The chart and being able to see, like data was also, the idea came from the same app. Like, oh yeah, that's how they do it. It's a cool idea. I'm going to probably do something similar. And home is very different because I sort of wanted to explore a different direction where you can have multiple bikes and like there everything is nested down into one thing. But everything, like most of the other things came from Yours Truly.
Yours Truly.
That's a lot of where my inspiration came from.
Cool. Very cool. Have you built apps before, or was Kilowatt your first ever app?
No. So I run today, like my day job is to run as an engineering team in a tech company that actually builds apps.
Okay.
And in this current company, when I joined the company, I built the first version of the app and then built a team around doing the development for the long term of the company. I've been there for like almost 6 years now.
Nice.
And in the past, I've done iOS apps. I've done Android apps. I've done both platforms separately and natively. And then eventually when I got to this job, I started exploring multi-platform development where you can write code once and run in both iOS and Android, the same piece of code.
Cool.
And so Kilowatt is, as much as the company that I work for today, we also use the same platform, the same foundation, because it's open source, to build an app that we can run on both devices. And so you don't have to write code twice, for two separate platforms. So yeah, I've done a lot of development in the past, and I still do a lot of development today. So yeah, this is not my first app.
Cool. That makes sense. Do you have any, have you come across something else that you've seen that you thought like, this could use an app, I might have to build another app? Or are you kind of like focusing all your efforts still on Kilowatt?
Yeah, this is fun. I think that BMSs are an interesting area to build apps.
For sure.
Like, I have mixed feelings, to be honest, because, Ant sort of has an app that works. It works, but it's just so ugly. Like, it could be more usable. It could be easier to use, right? Like, I really love that. That's why I created the wizards in what I call wizards in Kilowatt, where you just can like set up thing and then it has a series of steps. You follow that series of steps. Like it should feel like setting up your AirPods and an iPhone where you open the case and like it just pops and like easy to use.
Yeah.
Like I think that it could like VMSs could use a lot of more better usability because like I see even folks like battery builders like going into like that app from Ant and like type in values manually. But like, why are you even doing this? Like this is all math that you can automatically generate, right? Like, why are you spending time multiplying 3.6 times a number, right? Like,
yeah.
And so I do feel like that could use a lot of improvement. And I thought about building a BMS app, even thought about doing a BMS integration within Kilowatt, so you could like monitor each one of your cells during discharge, like, and have graphs about each parallel group. I thought about all of that.
Yep.
But I ended up spending more and more time with features like location and firmware upgrades. And like, there's like an infinite amount of things that I can still do here.
Right.
In creating a new project, a lot of the time that you spend is not in making things work. Like engineers spend a lot of time doing
debugging, or
not debugging, like setting things up, right? Like you have to set up how you want to write code and how you want to split things, and like think about like, code is split in many files, thousands of files.
Wow.
And so think about having thousands of files in a single directory. You can't.
Yeah.
You have to think about how to organize these things in a logical way with, folders and subfolders. And this takes a lot of time. And then there's a lot of what we call boilerplate code. Boilerplate comes from, kind of like, you have a pan and you want to fry. You put that on a fire, and you can't fry immediately because you've got to heat up the pan first. Right. So boilerplate is basically doing that. Like it's doing unuseful work. It doesn't help you cooking, right? But you gotta have to go through it because there is no way to cook if the pan is not hot, right? So a lot of development time is spent on this, especially in the beginning. So that's why I didn't want to start another project, because starting another project derails me from finishing what I have to finish on this project, like firmware upgrades, which have been marinating apparently for like 2 months now.
Yeah. So there's no quick way, basically. It's a pretty serious mountain to climb before you get any real functionality.
Yes, and like, to be honest, the tools that we use nowadays to develop apps, like the ones I use to develop Kilowatt, like they allow you to start. It's literally, I can make you right now a new ASI app in maybe 30 minutes running on your device. It's relatively quick.
Yeah, that's fast.
Yeah, but think about everything. Yeah, I can give you an app in 15 minutes, right? But what if the lead time for everything you ask me takes 15 minutes, and there's 100 asks?
Right.
Right,
It grows.
and that's how it compounds. So like development is hard because like things really compound. And like, yeah, I can have a new one, but like if no bug appears on the BMS app, and I'm working on Kilowatt right now, if I don't fix the BMS bug, then I can work on Kilowatt, but that bug is going to be there. And if I stop working on Kilowatt and fix this bug, yes, I fixed the bug faster, but in this project, I'm not taking anything because I just have one hand, like 2 hands, right? So that's why to me, like, I don't want to have too many distractions because I already have, like personal life that still goes on, right? And if I take way too many projects, I'm not going to be able to invest the time that I want to invest, which is quality time, to make things easy. And I'm just going to rush something. And I'm not doing side projects to not have fun and to feel pressure. I'm doing side projects because when I have nothing to do, I'm just going to write some code, and yeah, like I don't want to get any pressure. That's why I didn't also want to make Kilowatt paid, because making Kilowatt paid means that people have now an implicit expectation,
right,
that they bought a product and it has to work. And I don't want to have to worry about that because it's not my job. It's my side project for fun, right? And so that's why I don't build anything else, because I'm still having fun. There's still lots of things to do here. Yes, these other things could be cool, but I just want to focus on what is already built and has a lot of foundation so that I can develop features faster. That's more important to me than like building something new, is making sure that I can still have an idea right now and implement it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, which is going to be how much time I actually have to spend on that problem.
Right.
And be fast because all the foundation is there. But creating a new project means there is no foundation for it to build upon, meaning that everything takes much longer.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So how long total have you been working on it, did you say?
It's been like 2 years, I think now. When I started, it has been really slow. I launched the first version with just setup. There was no other thing. I think, little like simple dashboard, and like adding things over time, like with a 10, 20, 30, 1 hour that I have spare.
Yeah.
So it's been like 2 years, but it's been stable for almost like 1 year now that I don't do as much feature development on it and like don't overhaul way too much. I think last year, the like biggest feature that came out was GPS tracking and use GPS speed. Because some devices like the camera can't give you speed reading from the motor because the motor is not spinning on freeway.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. Yep.
And so you got to use GPS speed, or if you're crisscrossing wires, another big friend from Kilowatt, and you go above 70 miles per hour, well, it happens that the controller speed readings only go up to 127 kilometers per hour.
Interesting.
And if you go beyond that, the numbers become negative. And so if you're Chris, you got to use GPS. So yeah, GPS was probably the like most recent feature that got out and like bigger feature that come out. And that's kind of the trend. Like, this year is going to be further upgrade and like probably nothing else for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Just big ones.
Because that's the time that I had, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's cool, man. That's awesome. Well, I don't want to, it's been an hour. I don't know how much time you have, but, this has been super cool, hearing about it. And, I would love to have another conversation with you later on down the road about, other things that you're working on. But thank you so much, man, for taking the time. I really appreciate this app, what you've done for the community, putting it out there without any cost. And talking so openly about it. Super cool. I think the appreciation comes from a lot of people. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm, it's really like, I'm really happy to hear that people are making use of it and it's being helpful. It's my way like to give back to the world, maybe. So yeah, always good to hear people using it. And happy to chat again in the future. There is, yes, another app coming. But there was already a spoiler today. Maybe folks are going to realize. But so maybe we can talk about that.
Okay.
The next time.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds good. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much again. Again, such a pleasure. And we'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Peace.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you'd like to see. We want to hear about it. And if you want to watch another video, click on this one right here. Or if you want to see what kind of e-bike stuff that we've got, check out this link right here.